All right, today we have a very, very special guest. This is our Constitutional Rights PAC candidate series, and where we interview candidates, get them on the record so that you can see their answers and you can see what's important to them and what they stand for. And like I just told Chad before we started, so that we could make sure that they keep their word and they don't break their word, so we don't have to break their neck. And so welcome here, Chad Prather, who is running for governor of Texas again in the Republican primary against Greg Abbott. Welcome, Chad.
Good to be with you.
So want to jump right in here. You're running for Texas governor. Let me go a little bit background so people who don't, the very few people who don't know you. Chad, of course, is a host on Blaze TV. He's a very funny, very widely heard comedian, and he has more important to me. He is a constitutional conservative and someone who wants to, do the right thing by Texans. And I am not a Texan, although I do have an office in Texas. And so I consider myself a Texas by proxy, Texan by proxy. Although, everybody over the last 6 months or so that I've spoken to has come to me and said, well, with I live in Virginia, with how Virginia's going, maybe Texas is the place we should be moving. So I'm sure you're seeing a lot of new faces there. So Chad, you host the Chad Prather Show. You got a successful career. What the heck are you doing jumping into politics?
Yeah, I'm what they call one of those reluctant candidates, a guy who had everything going for him career-wise, professionally, and having nothing to risk, nothing to lose, just go out and go to work every day and have fun doing it, which I'm blessed to be able to do. But about a year ago, and actually it was a year ago, this past week, I was in South Dakota, and I was waiting on President Trump to come speak at Mount Rushmore. I was there in the Black Hills of South Dakota the night before and breathing some of that free air that Kristi Noem has provided to her great state as a governor there. And I was with Donald Trump Jr. and having a glass of wine, and my news notifications came through that yet another mandate was being handed out by Greg Abbott here in the state of Texas to shut down, lock down, and close businesses for the pandemic. And it was what I believe to be an unconstitutional move. It trampled on a lot of people's rights. It shut down arbitrarily. It shut down a lot of people's businesses. And he unilaterally, and I'd say dictatorially, determined who is essential and who's not. And so I don't know if it was because I was with the Trumps or because I was drinking an extra glass of wine that night, but I was just angry enough that I took to Twitter and said I'm going to run for governor in Texas in 2022. Went to bed that night, had no idea the firestorm that I was going to wake up to the next day. I realized the angst and the anger that a lot of people had towards Greg Abbott over these unilateral moves. A lot of people were upset with these mandates. And although Texas was not the worst, it still happened. And the fact that I believe the Constitution was trampled on was enough to inspire me to say I'm going to put my money where my mouth is, use my voice, use my platform to make a difference. And what I'm trying to prove to everybody is that the average man, the everyman, the blue-collar person who's out there without a political career can actually step up and stir the waters a little bit and be someone who, messes with the system, if you will. And we're certainly, from a grassroots standpoint, seeing that exact thing happen here in the state of Texas.
Well, that's fantastic. And listen, I was actually in Texas at my Texas office in San Marcos, and we were. I was as I landed, those mandates came down, and I saw bar owners, and restaurant owners, because I went down there, and walked around and went to go grab lunch, and man, they were despondent. They were despondent.
Well, coming from the entertainment world myself, a person who travels all over the country and makes a living entertaining people on live stages, I felt it directly. The theaters, the performing arts centers, the various venues like that, which I'm accustomed to working in, were immediately shut down across the nation. I have numerous friends in the music and comedy industry who lost their careers in many ways. Many folks had taken a lot of risk to step out. It's a hard thing to step out and make a living just being yourself. A lot of people had done that, and now that right was taken away from them. And people say, well, the mandates have been lifted, but I want to remind everybody there are certain cities in Texas that are still suing people. My friend Shelley Luther, I was just with her last night at an event in Cypress, Texas. The city of Dallas is still suing her for opening up her salon there in Dallas, as people well know that story. I have 51% bar owners who were shut down. They're still fighting the TABC regulations against them. My friend Chris Pallone has a bar and a music venue in Fort Worth. He's up to about $300,000 now in legal fees from fighting this. These are issues that are still going on because of these unilateral mandates that happened.
Well, you're exactly right. You said it wasn't as bad as other states, but Texas shouldn't be anywhere near other states. I mean, Texas is, you forget about people saying Texas is turning blue. I think in 2020 we proved that that's not true. Texas is a red state. It's a Republican state. It's a state where we can have a conservative at the helm, somewhat constitutionalist, someone who doesn't put their people through tyranny like Greg Abbott did. And now look, I'm just speaking the way I feel. Greg Abbott became a tyrant for a short period of time, and if you become a tyrant for a moment as governor, you need to be gone. And you're right. Sherry Luther going through this. We have another governor, another great example in Florida, who just basically gave everybody pardons for anything and got rid of their fines for all things related to the lockdown. But Greg Abbott didn't follow suit.
No, he didn't. And when he mandated the things that he mandated with these lockdowns and these shutdowns and these closures, as well, and I'll throw in mask mandates along with that, it's my understanding that he really only consulted with about 5% of the legislators in making that decision, and he really didn't talk with anyone else, including the lieutenant governor or the Speaker of the House, Dade Phelan, to get their counsel. It was a unilateral decision. I don't use that word mistakenly. You made the comment a minute ago. You said that you're a Texan by proxy. Historically speaking, a lot of people want to be Texans by proxy. They want to identify with the attitude and the spirit that represents the great state of Texas. These days, we have people that are gravitating more towards the liberty consciousness of a Florida or a South Dakota. I jokingly tell people that South Dakota doesn't have its own toast. We do in Texas. There's no waffle irons in the shape of Florida that I know of. There's a lot of Texas pride here. I was with my friend Andrew Wilkow recently on his show, and he said, living in the state of New Jersey, we would love to have a Greg Abbott in the governor's seat there. I said, that's because you guys have gotten so used to having huge swaths of your liberty taken away from you that you've become accustomed to it. Here in the state of Texas, when you just chip away pieces of liberty, we get reasonably pissed off about it. We take it personally. And it's an insult to what I consider the bigness, largesse of Texas and that attitude that's there. The beauty of Texas is this, and I'll digress for a second, but it makes a point. It's caught. It's not taught. That is the spirit of Texas. You either see it or you don't. Once you see it, you get it forever. It's infectious. It's contagious. And once you get that spirit, it's hard to get it out of somebody's system. And when you start taking away their liberties, these people that since 1800, Texas has never marshaled a fighting force more than 1,000 men. With less than 1,000 men, Sam Houston secured not only the Republic of Texas, but created a nation. That's the type of spirit that is exuded here in this great state. And when people start having their liberties, they become the spirit of them that wants to fight for liberty really rises up.
You're absolutely right. Now I'll fight anybody who says Texas barbecue isn't the best. By the way, true. There's no question about it. And so you're right. I mean, the spirit of it's Americanism. It's what the left is fighting against. The patriotism, the self-reliance, that is all encapsulated in what it means to be a Texan. And I appreciate you doing that. Now, I just want to ask you, because I want to be very clear here. I know you're against the Governor Abbott lockdowns, but when you become governor, and the next flu or the next sniffle comes around, will you lock down Texas?
So absolutely not. in a nutshell, absolutely not. And let me tell you why. Because a lot of people say that it's easy to look back on things and be an armchair quarterback. Let me tell you how I would have handled it differently, because I was experiencing in the moment, and I said this in the moment. And by the way, I'll remind people that although he lifted the mandates, there is still an article in the law that says that the governor can do this again. He can shut this down again at his discretion in case of something pandemic related or something that they deem as a danger to the public in general. The Constitution wasn't written to keep us safe. The Constitution was written to keep us free. And when you step on the Constitution in the name of safety, it is still an affront to the Founding Fathers' intent. That's my conviction. So in hindsight, what I wish Greg Abbott would have done, and what I believe I would have done, is I would have come to the people of Texas and said, we're in this together. We faced crisis together. You are Texans. You are individuals. You are free. You have your rights, but you also have your responsibility. I'm going to encourage you to do what's right for you, do what's right for your family, do what's right for your community, take care of your neighbors, take care of yourself. But at the end of the day, you are free to make those decisions. We won't make those decisions for you. If you're afraid, don't go out. If you don't want to do business, don't do business. We would have made everything possible, everything available for people to take the necessary precautions that they felt was best for them. We would have made those things available. But at the end of the day, to mandate it, that's just simply not American, and it's certainly not Texan.
Well, I'm going to end this topic on this. The term lockdown is a prison term. Mm-hmm. The term quarantine is a health term. What the government did and your governor did was lock down the American people, imprison them. Take away their livelihood, and there were 48 other governors that did the same thing, and they all should pay a price. And so I appreciate your stand on that, and I'm glad. This is what a real leader looks like, by the way. Someone who lets people be themselves and make decisions for themselves.
We saw that happen a few years ago when Hurricane Harvey hit the state of Texas. There was no need to come out and mandate that we help our neighbors. People just began to show up en masse and help the folks of South Texas who were affected by these floods and these hurricanes, and these storms. Food was delivered. I personally made several trips down to Southeast Texas, down to the Houston area to help people, to deliver goods. We didn't, that was the difference between, say, the state of Texas and what happened when Katrina or Irene hit Louisiana. We banded together. I think we would have done the same thing in the state of Texas with this pandemic as well, had we been treated not like children that needed to be put in timeout, but as adults who are free to make their own decisions.
And that's exactly right. Now talking about another situation where people were locked in was of course the storms in Texas this winter, and you had those power outages, and my business down there was affected by those power outages, and folks were stranded, and I won't blame Texas on being ill prepared for a snowstorm or an ice storm like that, but I will say that the idea that the state of I almost said the country of Texas, the state of Texas being ill prepared to handle energy is inexcusable. Inexcusable. You have all the energy in the world. You don't need to rely on green energy. But tell us about your thoughts on what happened that day and what led up to it, and what you'll do as governor to prevent it.
It's hard to prepare for a 100-year storm. You don't know when it's going to hit. You don't know how it's going to hit. You don't know what it's going to affect. And although it happened over a period of a couple of days in February, there are people who are still having to bail themselves out and do a lot of repairs because of what happened with not only the weather, but the effective shutdown that happened. We were stranded. We were locked in. We were in a place where we couldn't get out. You can't control that. And it wasn't that it was cold outside. It's that it became cold inside, and people were freezing to death. People couldn't get what they needed. When you have 25% of your energy dependence on green energy, whether it's solar or wind turbines, that's just absolutely untenable. You can't continue to rely on something like that. It just doesn't make any sense from a logical standpoint. One, these are petroleum-based products. And these wind turbines, they use 35% of the energy they produce just to run themselves. So it doesn't make sense that we have taken ideologies and turned them into policies. I don't like that at all. We've got to get away from that. Our number one revenue maker in the state of Texas historically has been our oil and gas industry. We've got to rebuild that. We've got to focus on that. Right now, our man camps in the oil and gas fields are being inhabited by illegal aliens, which tells you that we are not even operating our oil and gas fields to the capacity that we need to be operating them. Another thing that needs to happen is we need to refocus on coal. We villainize coal to the point where the ecologists and the green energy people have made us demonized for even focusing on such an industry. But coal, we have several coal plants that are lying dormant across the state that need to be cranked up so that when you have a situation like that, whether it's 107 degrees in the summertime or it's 3 below and freezing outside, we can crank up the power on these coal plants and produce more energy to back up our ERCOT system. The system's in shambles. The system is not operating, is not functioning. It revealed a lot of things. It was not even being operated by people who were within the state of Texas. Some people were not even in the country of America. They were operating Texas power grid. These are things that have got to be overhauled. They got to be looked at. They've got to be managed. It was a huge mismanagement problem. And these are the things, and it's so interesting that very week that we had what I call the Snowmageddon, or the Snowvid, if you will, that Greg Abbott received a governor's award for being one of the greenest governors in the country. It's somewhat ironic that he received that award on the same week in the same time period that his government was shut down, his state was shut down because of energy mismanagement.
Well, like you said, you're running ideology over policy, and
Right.
and that's what the whole green movement is about, and that should indict Governor Abbott.
Right.
That shouldn't be an award. It should be an indictment that you're one of the most green governors in the state of Texas, and that's the result of it. And it's only going to get worse. If you continue down that path, you're going to be like California, like the third world. But I repeat myself, that you're going to have rolling blackouts, and you're going to have all sorts of energy problems in the state of Texas. It's insane. It's insane.
We've already been rolling brownouts and blackouts in the state this summer. These are things that just simply cannot happen in this state. When you consider us to be the 8th to 12th at any given time largest economy on the planet, these things just simply cannot be. It's absolute mismanagement and should never happen again.
Oh, and listen. If you get the blackout during a winter storm and people are freezing, that's awful. I hate being cold. But what happens if you got a 110-degree weather day and the power goes out and people are dying of heat stroke? I mean, this is a real problem. So we can't put the green energy ahead of American lives, and that's what I believe the governor had done.
Let me say on that topic that one of the things that's not being discussed, but is about to be a very critical issue in the state of Texas, and that is our water supply. We're running into the same problem when it comes to water supply here in the state of Texas. That's a crisis that needs to be averted before it ever happens. And trust me when I tell you, it's going to happen very soon.
These are all great points, and listen. If you're listening to this interview here, and you thought Greg Abbott was one of the good guys because Donald Trump endorsed him, just keep listening, because he's not. He's not. He's an establishment hack who has tried to play hero. And I'll give you an example. He said, "Oh, we're going to use the National Guard," and from what I've read, he's committed 500 troops to the National Guard. Which, okay, good. You got 500 troops helping the National Guard at the border to stop the illegal immigration invasion. Texas has 20,000. National Guardsmen, if I'm correct.
Right.
And so how many National Guardsmen as governor of Texas are you going to send to the border?
I think the only National Guardsmen that need to remain in Austin, Texas, are the ones that are doing administrative duty and pushing papers around on a desk, and every single able-bodied man and woman needs to be down on the border and making sure that we are detecting, we are deterring, we are detaining, we are deporting, and we are defending. And we've got to push that. It is an all-out invasion. I'll be down in Del Rio, Texas this next week. Actually, I'll be there Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. Following week, I'll be down in Brownsville and Harlingen. The week after that, I'll be in McAllen. not El Paso. We will visit El Paso, but for different reasons than Vice President Harris did. It will be more than a photo op. I mean, we will literally be down there with bulletproof vests on. And let me tell you, the places that we go into, not only dealing with the invasion of illegals coming into the country, but also with the human trafficking situation that's going on. It's an absolute nightmare. And if you tell me that I've got to go to a certain city, you take Del Rio. Del Rio is the oasis of Texas. It is a beautiful place. But you tell me that I have got to go into a city like that, a city of 35,000 people there in Valverde County, and I'm required in certain areas to wear a bulletproof vest, we have a problem. Every National Guardsman and woman needs to be on that border, making sure. And we need to leverage our power with the size that we are in government or in the federal government as a state to make sure that the Biden administration keeps their feet held to the fire. I believe the cartels need to be named an international terrorist organization. I think that would do wonders across the country. People need to be reminded that this isn't a Texas, Arizona, New Mexico, or California problem. This is a national problem. There are busloads of immigrants or illegals, that are disappearing in the middle of the night and winding up in places like Tennessee and Ohio and Iowa. This is a national crisis that has to be dealt with, and unfortunately, it's too little, too late. The other week, I posted a social media post on Facebook, where I took 7 headlines about everything that Greg Abbott said he was going to do to defend and protect our border, to solidify our border there with Mexico. And I put them up there. You would think that they were things that were being said right now. These were all campaign promises from 2015. They were 2015. Nothing was done then. He's a campaign conservative, and you bring them up. They sound like the same things that are being said last week when he was with Donald Trump down on the border on June 30th and Sean Hannity was holding a town hall. Nothing is being done. Nothing has been done. The man spent $295 million of taxpayer money for contact tracing. That alone is enough to boot anyone out of office. But then he's going to crowdfund a wall. He's going to spend $100 million of taxpayer money for higher education, but he's going to crowdfund a wall. Folks, listen, if you're listening, I'm telling you, the wall it is helpful, but it's not the be-all, end-all answer. The wall needs to be built. I'm telling you, the wall will be built one way or another, because I believe that at some point in time, it's going to be inevitable. The wall has to be built. But the wall becomes a speed bump unless we put some other things in place. No sanctuary cities, absolutely no opportunity for taxpayer funds to go into the hands and the mouths of illegals that are coming into this state. Those things have got to be shut down. We have people with cartel-driven coyotes and traffickers that are coming across their ranches every single day. They live with this reality. They can't sit on their front porch without an AR-15. It's absolutely dangerous, and this campaign rhetoric is just simply something that's not going to be tenable for the days ahead in Texas.
I want to reiterate something you said. So Abbott said he sent 500 National Guard troops to the border, and you said you're going to inverse that and send 19,500 troops to the border and keep 500 for paper pushers.
Exactly. I would tell the federal government to do the exact same thing. They've got more National Guardsmen guarding the Capitol around a wall that's built around the Capitol right now and the White House. There should only be people pushing papers. Everybody else should be doing a job down on the border to defend our nation. So tell me, now that you bring up the Capitol, and this is important to me, I'm a January 6er. I was there. I was also there in one of the other rallies that we brought 2 million people to stop the steal. Tell me about your feelings on January 6th. Was it the worst event in human history? Was it worse than 9/11, like the left-wing media likes to say? It's amazing how they need that narrative in order to continue pushing this fictional idea of the state of America from the progressive viewpoint. This is a situation where, so I was at several of the Stop the Steal rallies in D.C. I was not there on January 6th. I was supposed to be there. Had another event that happened, and I could not be there. Probably thankful that I'm not, because I'm one of those guys who would have probably been close to the action, right? Was this anything more than people that were wandering through the Capitol building in a place they shouldn't have been, in a way they shouldn't have been? Some people didn't even know why they were in there. They just thought it was okay to be there. And then you had some other buffoons, that were just absolutely they had no point in what they were doing up there. To call it an insurrection is just absolutely insidious. It's insanity. When you figure it's not only that, we've had situations where, federal buildings were technically invaded during the Kavanaugh hearings. So to put this squarely on Trump supporters, or to say all conservatives are now insurrectionists, if you're a Trump supporter, then you support January 6th. No one, literally no conservative with a viable platform has condoned the actions of January 6th. It's absolutely insane to do so, and it is a work of absolute fiction.
I appreciate that. So the states run education, right? Not if you kind of listen to the liberals. They want everything centralized.
Right.
But the Randy Weingartner, the teachers union leader, came out and said that she is going to fight legal battles for states like Texas that have banned critical race theory. As governor, will you continue to ban critical race theory, and how will you fight to preserve real American history versus this new leftist narrative?
So let me point out that, to my knowledge, in 2 terms, 8 years in office, Greg Abbott has only stuck his neck out for one legislative thing, and that was preschool for all. He's never stuck his neck out on the line with any sense of conviction for any other legislation that I'm aware of. Someone may be able to prove me wrong, but I've yet to find anybody who can say Greg Abbott really took a stand on this. This is one of those critical issues that is a pure conviction of mine. Critical race theory not only has no place in Texas, it has no place in America, and it certainly has no place in human history. It is a Marxist philosophy. It is absolutely racist at its core. It is something that is going to lead to further division, more segregation, and it can't be taught to our children. The Department of Education is useless. The Department of Education educates no one. The teachers' unions don't educate anyone. We've got to get back to a point of allowing our educators to not only teach, but to evaluate and to promote without standardized testing. But to your question, how do we do this? We've got to teach real history. We've got to teach, we've got to stop revising history to make it palatable to the ideologues on the far left and on the far right. That promotes more and more ignorance. But we've got to teach true history, such as the nation was founded in 1776, not 1619. And these are the kind of things that are being not only encroaching, but we're turning our children's minds over to these brainwashing camps called public education. This has got to stop. We've got to fight for this. This is the next generation that is being taken advantage of in a large way. And we as adults are turning a lazy eye towards it, and we're not paying attention to it. So kudos to those who are going to their Board of Education, into their council meetings, and they're standing up and fighting back and speaking out against critical race theory. People need to do a little history themselves of where critical race theory came from, what its motivations, what its foundings were, where critical theory came from and who founded that, and understand that the invasion of Marxism is very real in America today and is happening in 3 areas. It's happening in our educational system, it's happening in our media, and it's happening in our court system. Right now, for the most part, we still have our courts, but the media and education system are absolutely gone to Marxist ends. I just pulled a piece of congressional legislation or a proposal for Congress from 1963 from the Communist Party in America. And if you read off the things that they wanted pushed through in Congress, it reads like today's headlines. It's insane how far we've come and the things we've allowed for the invasion of communism. And critical race theory is one of the chief proponents of that today.
Very important question to our listeners is and our donors and our supporters is: are you pro-life?
I'm conservative because I'm pro-life. When I was at the University of Georgia, I wrote for the Red and Black newspaper, specifically on pro-life issues. And I appreciate one of the legislative priorities that we focused on in this 87th legislature here in the state of Texas, and that was the abolishment of abortion. The heartbeat bill was passed. I believe that the life begins at conception, And I believe that life is sacred. I believe we're created in the image of God. And I believe that even those with no voice deserve to have someone to speak out and fight for their right to live. So I'm 100% pro-life. And I always jokingly tell people, but I also make a point with it when I say that I grew up in the state of Georgia, but I was conceived in Texas. So similarly, I am a Texan. So you're a Texan by proxy. I'm Texan by conception because I believe life begins at conception. So
God bless.
It's always an interesting little logical discussion we have from that when I'm accused of not being from the state originally. But yes, 100% pro-life.
That's incredible. So another question is we have of course the Second Amendment, an inalienable right that says shall not be infringed. I mean, it's pretty clear how the Second Amendment. People forget the comma sometimes, in the Second Amendment, but it's because we need to have a standing army or a militia. We need the citizens' right to keep and bear. Of course, bear. The word bear means carry, not like grizzly bear, but carry, keep and carry arms shall not be infringed. And we have a nominee to ATF, this guy David Chipman, who's going through Senate. Maybe it may have some trouble. Senate confirmation hearings. Apparently, it's been reported. He denies it. I don't know if I believe him. He doesn't seem like a good guy, so there's no reason for me to give him any benefit of the doubt. But was at Waco, which of course occurred in Texas, and looks like he took a selfie over the charred remains of those folks there in Waco. But he's going to come in and as he put, take away our guns. He's going to come after our AR-15s and all the scary guns he possibly can. What is Texas going to do about it under your governorship?
Well, shall not be infringed means shall not be infringed. You expressed that point completely and wholeheartedly according to my convictions as well. Chipman, the problem with Chipman is he can't even define what a scary gun is. And he's going to be put up for, as Joe Biden called it, the AFT. And of course, we saw in Waco, in terms of the ATF's reaction towards all of that, it was a tragedy. It was absolutely horrible. It was an infringement of people's rights. And we saw the end result of what that becomes when the government tries to intervene in a situation like that. I am 100% not only 2A, but for constitutional carry, which of course means shall not be infringed. I believe if you want to carry a firearm, you should be allowed to carry a firearm. It should be your legal right to do it without being harassed by law enforcement or anything else. One of the GOP priorities was constitutional carry in this 87th legislative session, but it was watered down with amendments to the point where actually it's more like a permitless carry. And people keep saying that Greg Abbott signed in constitutional carry. We should have, as the state of Texas, everybody who well knows us, we should have been one of the first states ever with constitutional carry on the books. Greg Abbott has pushed this off now for 8 years. He didn't want to pass constitutional carry. He knew that unless he signed something of that nature, that he was not going to be reelected. So his hand was literally forced, but it's not constitutional. 18 to 21-year-olds under this amendment they still can't carry firearms, constitutionally. They can go and fight and die for our country, but they can't carry a firearm in the state of Texas without a permit. And while there are various aspects to it, there's still a lot of limitations that come along with this. We've got to remove those limitations. And I go back to what I said about the pandemic. We've got to treat people like adults, expect people to be responsible, expect people to look out for their neighbors and take care of themselves. If I go into a restaurant and I'm sitting there having a meal and I know that I'm surrounded by 40 other patrons who are all carrying a firearm, I'm not going to feel threatened. I'm going to feel safe. That's the way I want to live. That's the way I believe Texans, by and large, want to live. And to live in this level of fear of firearms is insanity. I'm good friends with Stephen Williford, who, of course, shot and killed the Sulphur Springs church shooter. And imagine if people in that church had been armed rather than Stephen Williford, who had to come from next door barefooted and pull his AR out of his safe. Lives could have been saved. Many more lives could have been saved. We saw that happen in the church shooting in White Settlement, Texas, where the deacon in the church actually pulled his firearm and neutralized the shooter. We've got to get back to freedom. At the bottom line, we got to get back to liberty. We got to get back to the Constitution, and the Bill of Rights makes those things simply clear.
By the way, just for those of you who don't know, ATF stands for alcohol, tobacco, and firearms, or as I like to call it, a good time. So I think look, I think you've proven the point, and one of the things we do on this constitutional candidate series is we make decisions on the spot whether or not to support a candidate, and absolutely we are going to support Chad Prather for Texas governor. And look, if you've listened to this candidate interview, and you feel as inspired as I am that you got someone real, someone who's going to fight, someone who speaks it the way it is, and who's not getting in it because they're a lifelong politician, then you need to support Chad Prather. And I recommend you go to his website, which is Prather2022.com, right? Prather2022.com. Or you can come to constitutionalrightspac.com. We'll have a donation page for Chad on our site. You can donate, and we're going to basically it's going to be a pass-through contribution. Your donation will go directly to Chad, and we'll actually pay the credit card fees and send him the money. So he'll get 100% of your money instead of 98.5 or whatever it is. And so, please support Chad. In any way possible. If you're in Texas, get involved in his campaign. The grassroots is vital. We have to be on the ground. And so let me end with this question: is how do you intend to win, and what's your ground game look like?
We always say that the folks that we're running against, they have deep pockets. Greg Abbott has actually received $18 million in the last 10 days. That is since the legislative session ended. $18 million that we know of. He has roughly $65 million in his war chest. I'm also facing some worthy opponents in Lieutenant Colonel Alan West, as well as former State Senator Don Huffines. They're both friends. They're both worthy conservatives. They also have very strong financial backings. So where they have telephones, and televisions, we have teleperson. And that's what we're doing. We're getting out. We're on a mission to visit every county in the state of Texas, and we're well on our way of doing that. And I was just in Harris County last night, which is the greater Houston area. And our thing is we just want to tell as many people as possible, because at the end of the day, the media is not going to give us the attention that we think we should be getting. A lot of people want to know, is this a gimmick? A lot of people want to know, because of the nature of my industry and what I've made a living doing, is this a joke? Absolutely, it's not. When it comes to Texas, and when it comes to Texas politics, Texas policy, and Texas people, it's not a joke at all for me. I believe that Texas is the center of the universe. I'm a conservative that believes that people should be free. You've got the freedom and the rights to do what you want to do, as long as it doesn't infringe on somebody else's rights. And then at the end of the day, government needs to get out of the way. So that's the message we're telling people. And we're encouraging people to tell their neighbors and tell their family, tell their friends. And a lot of people, if you're out of state, it still matters to contribute, and also to tell those people that living in the state of Texas to check us out. I think that they'll be happy with the message they hear. Absolutely. And hey, listen, thanks for joining us, Chad. We are going to support you. Go to Prather2022.com, go to constitutionalrightspac.com, and support Chad Prather for Texas governor. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Constitutional Rights PAC is responsible for the content of this message.